Pembroke College, Oxford University. She's in London for us. And Elisabeth, another axis of conflict in Yemen, taking the country even further away from a peaceful settlement.
That's right, Martine. This is quite a dramatic development because everyone had been hoping that peace talks between the Houthi government and the southern separatists would take place in Jeddah. And both parties are in Saudi Arabia for those talks, but nothing seems to have materialised yet. If it's true that UAE aircraft were used to subdue Houthi government troops in Aden, then that is a very significant shift. And it might at that point be time to actually start calling this a war within a war.
What about, then, the role of the Saudi-UAE various components of this coalition that has been ostensibly fighting one force, and that is the Houthis, predominantly in the north of the country? I mean, where does that leave that particular part of the conflict?
Well, the Saudi-UAE coalition has been quite careful so far not to actually mention the latest clashes in Aden. There have been no official statements by either of them, yet they have put out various statements about fighting the Houthis jointly and together and sharing the same values. So their statements are very much concentrated on the fight in the north with the Houthis, and that might be taken as a sign that talks are going on behind the scenes to try to resolve diplomatically the new crisis in the south of the country.
How significant would you say is the rift, then?
As much as they continue to deny that there's a rift, both Saudi and UAE forces, the forces that they back on the ground, are fighting each other. So there's no denying that there's a very serious rift. And although the UAE denies any blame for the clashes in Aden, and it is true to say that they're domestically generated and that they've been brewing for decades, nevertheless, had the UAE not backed the formation of the Southern Transition Council and had it not recruited thousands of troops across the south of Yemen, it's unlikely that we would see clashes quite to this extent today.
Do you think that Yemen, the country, as the whole country as we know it today, do you think that it stands a chance of retaining that territorial integrity? Or do you see, like some people say, almost the balkanisation, if you like, of Yemen?
I think that Yemen in its current form is very problematic. There are two main reasons for that. One is that the South has been suffering marginalisation now since Yemen United in 1990, and it wants to address that. But the second reason is that the so-called legitimate government of President Hadi isn't really legitimate. Yes, Hadi was voted in as president in February 2012, but he was only voted in for 2 years. That term came to an end in February 2014 and was extended not by the Yemeni people in an election, and he was an only candidate in any case. So his presidency lacks legitimacy, and while he sits mostly in Riyadh, his country has been at war, so it's very difficult to see how he can win back popular support on the ground, and in particular in the south. So Yemen in its current form is unlikely to be sustainable. The big question now is, does it split into two, or does it federalise into several states?
Elisabeth Kendall, thank you very much.